Good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to mention, yesterday we went to a conference at Senshin, which is in downtown LA, and Reverend Maskodani spoke, and Ellen Crane drove, Reverend Crane, which is really wonderful. But on the way home, I got to see the Coliseum, which is kind of neat. But then we went through SC. And I don't know, I got the heebie-jeebies. I saw the Galen Center, and so today I wore my UCLA tie. The UCLA bear is on here, and the powder blue. So this is calming me down. So I went to UCLA. Humble brag. And when I went to UCLA, I transferred as a junior into the mathematics department and computer science. And I kind of have this little rule in my head. I think it's true. The computer science department at UCLA was really brutal when I went there. And I don't think any major is inherently difficult. I don't think any subject is inherently difficult. Like, I don't really think learning Japanese has to be as hard as it is. But for some reason it is. But the computer science department was impacted. They had way too many people wanting to get in, and they literally didn't have enough laptops and computers and printers. So it was very difficult. And there was a class called CS20 where they really tried to weed you out. And it was one of those things, if you look on your right and your left, you know, the odds of both people being there is a 50% dropout rate. And I started out, I got a 49 out of 100 on the midterm. And I'd never gotten that before. And I actually called home crying. I'm failing, I don't know anything. I wanted to come home. And my mom said, just go back tomorrow and just see what other people got. You know, if they all got hundreds and you got a 49, then call me back. And I didn't really like that answer, but I went back, and I didn't know this, but the average was 49, right? And at UCLA, the average is like a B minus. So I stuck with it, and it's a 10-week quarter, so it rips. About the 8th week, I was walking across the computer lab, and all of a sudden, I just got it. Like, I just knew how to program, because it was like this immersive 10-week, really difficult class. But about the 8th week, I just suddenly understood what it meant to program. And I remember walking across the lab, and I felt like I was 2 feet off the ground. And then I just knew I had it. So it all turned out well. But when I graduated, I swear the next day I started getting phone calls from UCLA about donating. It's really weird. I mean, like the next day. And I was feeling pretty full of myself. And I kind of thought I did it all on my own. And I actually said that to the lady on the phone. I said, I could have gone to any school and I would have gotten A's and I would have done well. And I don't owe UCLA anything. And so this is this idea that we do everything by ourselves, and we're self-made men and women. And, you know, this is a very dangerous road to go down. Like in the service book, if you don't live with the truth of interdependence, it leads to anger and frustration and greed. And so those were heady times, and I've learned from that experience that was never true. I had a teacher in high school that taught me what it meant to do math. Instead of memorizing formulas, he taught me to think. And math became very easy for me because he taught me to think and not to memorize. And so without him, I probably wouldn't have done well in math. So my parents, my dad was a computer programmer. He taught me how to do binary numbers when I was like 8 years old. So, you know, there's a lot doing well in life has a lot more to do with others than yourself. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that today. I'm trying to do talks that are timely. So, you know, I thought, what could I talk about in June? And everyone's graduating. Everybody's moving on to a new grade. So I kind of wanted to talk about the class of 2019. So I'm going to do a little bit of Japanese. It is very, very hard. So in computer science, I started out with a B minus and went to an A. In Japanese, I went from an A to a B to a C to a D. I still have a lot of trauma from my but it's another talk. So this is the character for the sound ka. So like in our alphabet, we have letters that make up sounds. But in Japanese, hiragana, this is the sound for ka. So, if you say tanaka, and you wanted to write it in a simplified hiragana form, you'd write that character. And then if ka is in a foreign word, this is katakana. It looks almost exactly the same, right? So if your name's Tanaka, you'd use this character. But if you were Bob Tucker, you might use that character. And then the kanji, the theory is that Japan has its own language, but they didn't have anything written. So kanji comes to Japan from China, and they think that some of the radicals or some of the pieces from the complicated kanji characters were kind of pulled out for hiragana and katakana. So this one is obvious. This is the kanji character that looks just like, right? So this is an easy example. They all three look really close to one another. So this is the kanji. And you can pronounce it Riki for power. And Reverend Harada's son's name is Ricky, but it's really Riki. This is the character for power. So I don't know if you remember Marcus Camby, the basketball player. No? Okay. It's not key to the Dharma talk if you don't know who Marcus Camby is, but a lot of NBA players will have this tattooed on their deltoid, on their shoulder for power, right? And I wanted to mention you have to be very careful with kanji characters because a lot of people have made mistakes. Ariana Grande, she got a tattoo. She wanted a tattoo for 7 rings. So shichi rin, I think. So she got 7 and the character for ring. But that kanji, that word in Japanese means a small Japanese barbecue. So then what she did is she put finger, she got the tattoo for finger, and then she put a little heart on it to try to save it. But now it kind of means I love barbecued fingers or something. So you have, if you're going to get a kanji tattoo, be really, really careful that it really is a word or a phrase. You can't just randomly take 2 kanji characters and tattoo it on yourself. So be very, very careful. So this is an important compound in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. The character on the left is Ji for self and Riki for power. So we call it Jiriki. But this is a compound. So what happens in English is we break the compound and we translate it separately. So literally, it's self-power. And that kind of sounds like effort, like trying hard. But it's dangerous to break up a compound like that. And I'm trying to think of a better example, but in English, if you have a mantle and a bunch of books, they tip over. So you sometimes buy bookends, those heavy, right? Granite or metal bookends. But if you were a Japanese person and you heard bookend and you broke up the compound, you might think this is a bookend, right? It's the end of a book. So you have to be careful. A bookend is a thing, and you can't really think of it as separating the compound. So jiriki, the way I understand it, the word has to do with a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking. The thinking that you're in charge, you're doing everything yourself, you're completely independent and self-made man is jiriki. Okay? So that's the way I kind of think about it. And then this character is kind of the analog, the flip side. Ta means other. And then we have the character for Riki again. So other power, to me, when I first came here, I thought it was higher power. Like everything is done by divine being in the sky. But again, we're breaking up the compound. Again, this is another way of thinking. This is realizing that everything you do is the result of the help from others. So it's not that you don't try, but that your coaches, your teachers have been a huge influence on your life. And another issue that because I'm a computer programmer, I kind of thought there was a word in English and Japanese for every object. There's like a one-to-one. In mathematics, we call this a one-to-one onto mapping. That this is called book in English, and then you go to Japan, and there's a book called hon. And so, okay, you can line up all these words, but words like beautiful, or there's a word, for instance, I think in French or German, to describe the feeling you have when you're in a foreign country. Like, it's beautiful and it's exciting, but things feel a little off. Like, you feel a little unsure of yourself. That they have a word for that. There's a phrase for that feeling. We don't have a word for that. And so you can't really translate it. So that's another issue. So tariki means to be aware of the dependence you have on others and to have a sense of gratitude. So this is maybe a rough transition, but we're going from kanji to the Big Bang Theory. So the Big Bang Theory was on for 12 seasons. It just had its series finale. And I wanted to go over this a little bit with you. The person in the green shirt in the middle is Sheldon Cooper, and he's brilliant. He's a physicist, but they never say this explicitly, but he's kind of on the spectrum. I think he might have a little Asperger's syndrome. He can't connect with people, and he has trouble feeling what other people feel. And he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and he's done it all by himself. And I like TV shows where the characters grow. There's an arc. So I love Seinfeld, but I was really disappointed because the point of Seinfeld was that nobody changes, nobody grows, nothing. It's very depressing. Jerry Seinfeld said there's no growth, no growth. But in this show, Sheldon slowly becomes compassionate. He falls in love. He gets married. His group of friends change him over a 12-year period. So on the far left is Bernadette Rostenkowski, and she's married to Howard Wolowitz. And then Raj, this is hard, Kuthrapali, there in the blue. And then Penny in the middle with her hand on her hip. That's Penny. And one of the big things about this show is you never find out what Penny's maiden name is. I don't care, but that was on the internet. They thought there was going to be a reveal. Like, remember Cosmo Kramer on Seinfeld? They thought that on the last one we'd finally find out her maiden name, but they introduce her as Penny Hofstetler because she marries Leonard on your right in the tan shirt. And then next to Leonard to the right is Amy Farrah Fowler. She has the unenviable task of being Sheldon's wife. It's rugged, it's hard, but they're in love. So Sheldon finally wins the Nobel Prize in physics. They jump ahead, and him and Amy Farrah Fowler win the Nobel Prize. The biggest, this is bigger than graduating from UCLA with a math degree. Not a little bit. So he steps up. I didn't check this all out, but is it in Sweden or Norway? It's one of those Norwegian countries. They go, and he receives his Nobel Prize. And he has this long speech he's going to give about what a great physicist he is. And he puts it away, and he explains how he couldn't have done this alone. And this was going to be 4.5 minutes. I've edited it down to a little over 2 minutes. But this is Sheldon's growth, going from a Jiriki person to a Tariki person over a 12-year period because of his friends. And I wanted to share this with you. So you could think about graduating from the 8th grade, from high school, from college, or moving up from being a junior to a senior. Everybody that was part of that journey and has helped you on your way.
I have a very long and somewhat self-centered speech here, but I'd like to set it aside.
Yeah.
Because this honor doesn't just belong to me. I wouldn't be up here if it weren't for some very important people in my life, beginning with my mother, father, Meemaw, brother and sister, and my other family, who I'm so happy to have here with us. I was under a misapprehension that my accomplishments were mine alone. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have been encouraged, sustained, inspired, and tolerated not only by my wife, but by the greatest group of friends anyone ever had. I'd like to ask them to stand. Dr. Rajesh Kuthrapalli, Dr. Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz, astronaut Howard Wolowitz, and my two dearest friends in the world, Penny Hofstadter, and Dr. Leonard Hofstadter. Howard, Bernadette, Raj, Penny, Leonard, I apologize if I haven't been the friend you deserve, but I want you to know, in my way, I love you all. And I love you. Thank you.
So, this is a really, really difficult thing for Sheldon to say because he's never said, I love you to anyone. He never connected. And through, this 12-year arc of his life, he's grown, he's become a fully human, and he has been saved, right? He's been liberated. And a lot of this has to do with his friends. And he never would have won the Nobel Prize on his own. It was only by collaboration with others. And, I feel this way a lot about becoming a minister. I told you this is my 20-year anniversary at OCBC. And, I just think about this. I came 20 years ago, and you did that new visitor announcement and said, if you would like to stand and be acknowledged, John and Linda Turner and their kids, Teague and Emily, when we stood up and everyone clapped, I felt welcomed and I felt part of a team or a sangha to practice together. And, it took, somebody asked me how long did it take to become a minister? I mean, it literally took 20 years. It took 20 years of study. And I tell people it took me 20 years to be an overnight success, right? It took 20 years of being an MA and of listening to the Sangha, getting feedback. You don't know this, but people would say, that was too loud, or your concho's not very good, you need to work on it. But it really helped me. It really helped me. So, if you're graduating or moving up in a grade, realizing this state of mind of Tariki is a very wonderful, it's like you're being pushed through life on a sailboat, right? You can exhale and relax. You're not responsible for everything. And you can also trust the process. You can immerse yourself in practice and know that it will be effective. And you don't have to worry so much about achieving your goal. And in some ways, when Sheldon kind of gave up on being a famous physicist, he ended up winning the Nobel Prize. And so if you could join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Dabuts. Naman Dabuts. Naman Dabuts.